Hello everybody, in this new tutorial of Angular 8 and ASP.NET Core. So today I'll show you how to make authentication with JWT token. So let's navigate to the Web API project and let's install two packages: authentication JWT bearer package and tokens.jwt package. That's great. Now let's move to the user model class, and here we need to add a new property type of string called token, in which we will store the token, the generated token for user. So in the user's controller, let's move to login action, and here we need to make the configuration in order to generate a new token for each logged in user. So let's make a new variable called token handler. It's equal to new JWT security token handler, and we need a second variable called key. It's equal to encoded. Let's import and ASCII.get bytes. So the secret key will be stored in the app settings JSON file. So we need to make a provider to get this parameter. So let's create a new class in tools folder called app settings, in which we make a new property called secret key type of string. So this class will represent the mapping between the app settings JSON file and the C#, the object world. So in the user controller constructor, we need to inject this app settings like a service. We need to use the iOptions type interface and type of app settings class. Let's import it and let's call app settings. And we need to add a private read-only type of app settings, which make app settings.value. And here we delete the interface in order to get the object directly. Cool. So here we need to make app settings.get the secret key. We'll see how to add this parameter in the app settings JSON file. So we need to declare a new variable called token descriptor. It's equal to security token descriptor. And let's import the using, in which we can declare our claims. So the subject, the property subject, is equal to new security new claims identity. Let's import it, and which takes an array of claims. So it will be new claims type of array, and let's add new claim, claims type. It will be the name. So here we define the identity of the logged user. So here the first parameter is claim type, so let's say the name, and the second, let's say user.id.toString. It's a unique identifier. So here we need to delete this semicolon, and here we have a comma, and let's define the expires. So in which time, how many time this token will be expired. So the data time dot add, so let's choose the UTC now dot add days. Let's say 2 days. After 2 days, the user need to put login password to make a new authentication. So the signing credentials, it's equal to new security, so new signing credentials. And inside we need to define the algorithm in which we make the encrypting token. So here we use symmetric security key, we use the key, and let's say this algorithm, so it's SHA 2056. And finally we need to generate the token. So let's create a new variable called the token. It's equal to the token handler declared already dot create token, and which take the token descriptor. And finally the user.token, it's equal to token descriptor so it's take the token handler dot write token, in which take the token. That's nice. I think that's all for the web API. So let's move to the app settings, the JSON, and add our secret key. So let's create a new property called app settings. Inside we need to declare new property called secret key. We have to make the same spelling between the C# and the JSON in order to make serialization and deserialization. So let's make this login action allow anonymous, so anonymous user can access this action, and for the others action of this controller we need to be authorized. And finally in the startup.cs we need to configure the app settings like a service for dependency injection. So here we need to make app settings section, it's equal to configuration.get section. So from the app settings file we need to get only the get the app sections settings section, and we make services.configure type of app settings, and let's take app settings section. So it's very easy to make this. And now let's configure the JWT authentication. So we need to get the secret key from the app settings. So secret key is equal to app settings. We need to encoding this secret key string like in the user controller. And now let's add authentication. So here we have the default authentication schema, and the default challenge schema it's equal to JWT bearer defaults.authentication schema. And finally we add the JWT bearer. So here in each request we need to validate the token. So if the token is not valid by the secret key, so we return 41 error. You are not authorized to get this to access to this resource. Eventually, if the action is allow anonymous, so everyone can access the resource. So let's move to the Angular project, and in the user model we need to add a new property, nullable, call a token type of string, and in the user services we need to create a private property called current user subject type of behavior subject, and we'll take type of user model, and we need to declare a public property, call it current user, and it will be observable type of user model. And in the constructor, let's say this dot current user subject is equal to behavior subject type of user model, and if we need to get the current authenticated user, we need to go and search this user from the local storage of browser. It's a storage of the browser, and we will store the connected user in the current user item. So finally, let's expose a new method in order to get the current authenticated user. So let's call it get current user object, and we return the current subject.value. And finally, in the login method, we need to set the local storage item current user to the connected user after a success connection. So here we make the pipe and map the current user with the local storage.set item, the current user key, and we need to store json.stringify the user object, and we say this dot current user subject dot next user in order to set the user in this current user subject. And finally, let's expose a new method in this service in order to make lookout, and eventually we need to remove the current authenticated user from the local storage and set the current subject to null. So now let's move to the tools folder and create a new file called gwt interceptors. So the role of this interceptor is verify that our requests contain the correct token for the current user, authenticated user. So here let's make it injectable in order to use it in like a dependency injection, and our class implements HTTP interceptor, and let's redefine the intercept method, and let's inject in the constructor the user service. Nice. So let's clean some imports and make it in a single line. So here we need the HTTP request, handler, event, and the HTTP interceptor. So we can clean the code here. And we need also to import the RxJS, the type observable, and that's nice. So now let's say if the current user is different from null and the user have a token, which means that the user is logged in, is authenticated user. So let's say the request.clone, we clone the request and we set in the header the bearer authorization method. So set headers in which we make authorization, it's equal to bearer the current token, and let's return next dot handle the request. That's great. So here every request for authenticated user will contain the correct token. So in the sign in component, let's say if the user is already connected, we redirect him directly to the home page. And in the app component, in the app model, we need to add the created provider. So let's add a new line in which we define the provider type of HTTP interceptor, and we use the interceptor class GWT interceptor. That's great. In the app model, we need to import the user service, and let's create a new property called current user, in which we store the authenticated user. So the object or the goal of this current user property is to handle the visibility of items in navigation bar, for example. So if the user is not authenticated, we need to hide the home menu, for example. So here we define the logout method. So we call directly user service.logout. And here we need to say in the navigation bar if the current user is connected. So ng if current user, we show the home item. So in the web API project, we added a new colon token. So don't forget to add a new migration by executing add migration and update database. That's great. Let's launch the web API and let's verify if all work correctly. So let's put a valid login mode pass, and that's work nice, the authentication. So the mechanic work nice. So here we don't see the home page, so the home menu item. So in order to make that, we need to declare new property type input. So the navbar is a child component for the app component. So here we need to send the current user from the home to the child. So here we bind the current user of child to the current user of parent component, and here normally should work yes. So now we need to hide the sign up and sign in if the user is authenticated, and we need to show and place the logout link. So that's great. And now we need to send the event from the children in order to make logout. And the logout method is defined in the parent component. So let's make an output property in the navigation bar component. Call it logout message emit. It's equal new emit, new event emitter, and the logout will transfer this event to the parent. So here we need to declare, we need to make a binding, let's say message to emit at the moment, and the method is called logout msg, and we send the event. So here let's change this method to logout, and here we need to define a parameter type of string, because we send a string message from children to from child to say we need to make logout. And so here that looks nice. Yeah, we need to say the event emitter. Let's change the import to Angular core. Yeah. And the emitter take one parameter type of string. That's nice. Let's change the binding to log out MSG emit, and I think that's should work correctly. Yes, that's great. So that's all today. Thank you very much.